Our society doesn't do emotions, have you noticed? Because emotions are unproductive. They're weak. They take time and energy away from important things like working and more working. We are taught to live in our heads, to be rational and not be taken away by illogical emotions. Our emotions are to be controlled, especially our anger and our sadness and our sexuality. And obviously, this is all bullcrap. But when was the last time you saw someone affirmed for feeling and expressing their emotions outside of a space like coaching or therapy? No. We're not taught to do that. That's not affirmed. We're taught to shut that all down. And it's no wonder why nowadays we've got loads of hate groups and e-girls. The huge issue here is that when you are shut down emotionally by shame, you lose the power that your emotions give you. Because, believe it or not, facts do in fact care about your feelings, and how you literally perceive the objective world is determined a lot by how you feel and how you think. Your emotions are the core of your basic power, and they serve you in two ways. Number one, emotions let you know your needs. Without your emotions, you wouldn't be able to know when something was wrong. Your emotions help you to grieve. They help you know when your boundaries have been violated. They tell you when you're hungry and when you're horny. And when you're cut off from your emotions, you're cut off from being able to feel and be in touch with and know what your needs are. Does that sound familiar? And two, emotions give you the energy to act. John Bradshaw likes to hyphenate the word emotion, so it looks like this. And he says that an emotion is energy in motion. And this energy moves us to fulfill our needs and to defend them or to run away when they're being violated. So when you're emotionally shut down, you struggle to know how to act in your own best interests. And it's a bit of a double bind because you've suppressed all this energy that you need to be able to act. And it takes a lot of energy to suppress that energy. So you're just exhausted. A life cut off from your emotions is barely a life being lived. And I think what's sad is that I see this a lot out in the world. People on the streets on their way to work with just blank faces. People in the office with fake smiles, trying to pretend that everything is all right. But I can see in their eyes this fear that they're not letting out. And I would know because I used to be one of these people. I am by nature quite a heady intellectual person, and so feelings was not something that was really on my radar until I needed to get therapy and I became more in touch with myself. And the problem that I faced by being such a heady person was that I hadn't been taught how to identify my emotions and be in touch with them, let alone express them or be able to regulate them. And the result was that I felt anxious almost all the time because I'd pushed them down, and that anxiety was them trying to reach out and get my attention. My joy, my curiosity, my anger, my sadness, my sexuality, all of that was shame bound and pushed down. And I'd been taught explicitly and implicitly not to express those emotions, that they were bad. And that if I did express them, I was somehow bad or weak or wicked. I feel really angry when I think about that. How dare someone not let me feel my emotions? And then I also feel sad because I didn't know any better. And I just think about myself even 10 years ago, just trying to get by without a proper emotional toolkit. Doing healing work means getting in touch with those emotions and feeling those emotions, and then integrating those parts of you and those emotions that you had shut off and cut out because of shame. And that was all done in self-defense. And it's not something to shame yourself over either. You were just doing what you needed to survive. But it makes it so hard to open up. When one of your emotions has been shame bound and you've been told that it's bad and it's naughty and you should cut it out, it's really hard to get back in touch with that. And then repressed emotions are often so tightly pushed down that they feel too big to even let out. And that's a real sign that you've repressed an emotion, that it feels like if you do let it out, it's just going to overwhelm you. And you don't even know what would happen because it's too much. Like for me, it was that I would lose control and I would never come back. Like it would be, it's like sheer terror. And one thing that I'm most proud of in my entire life is that I've gone there. I've faced that. And I felt even some of it. And I let it wash over me and I let go of control. And I came back. I didn't go anywhere. I came back. And so will you if you feel that. Unfortunately, once is not enough. I naively thought that it would be one big sort of wham bam and it's done, let everything out, cry your eyes out. No. I've found that you sort of need to go back inside yourself and step into that horrible place that is the most terrifying place in the world to go whenever you need to reintegrate some part of you that you've cut off because of shame. And every time is just as scary, but I do feel like you kind of get used to the battle of it. And actually, it's not really a battle, it's more like surrendering because you're letting go rather than trying to fight for control. But it's the most worthwhile thing that you can do. It's the most worthwhile thing that I've ever done. And my life today is so different than when it was even 2 years ago because of this work. And I am immensely, immensely grateful for that. And I was immensely grateful that I didn't go anywhere. That surprised me. I didn't go anywhere when I lost control and let go and let this anger and this sadness come over me. And I realized what all the theory that I've been studying actually meant, that I am not my emotions. You are not your emotions. You are a higher sense of self that is present and that can watch your emotions, but you are not your emotions. So no matter how much you feel your feelings, you can't get lost in them because they're not you. And knowing that and having experienced that gives me courage to go back there again and to gently, at my own pace, keep going into all of that fear and reintegrate the emotions that I haven't been allowed to feel my whole life. So now we've established what the purpose of emotions is generally, I want to just look specifically at some core emotions. And if you go into the literature, the shorthand is basically that you can feel three things: mad, sad, or glad. Or, as most people write about it, I'm happy, I'm sad, or I'm pissed off. And I don't really like this. I think it's pretty limiting. I was at a workshop and a friend of mine shared that she attended a seminar where they explicitly said, and you're only allowed to express yourself in three ways: mad, sad, or glad. And let's just say that she showed them all of the various nuances of that mad emotion. But so that I don't have to rattle off dozens of emotions, I'm going to stick to those core three, and then to feed and please my inner rebel, I'll give you a fourth one of that bad emotion, shame. So let's start with anger. Anger is currently my favorite emotion. I used to be so scared that if I let my anger out, that I would hurt people or my anger would hurt people, because I didn't know that you could be angry without doing harmful behaviors, without shouting and screaming and punching and just, you know. And I didn't want to do any of that. And I wouldn't condone any of that behavior. So I bottled it all up. But anger is a fundamental human emotion. It tells us when our boundaries have been violated, and it gives us the energy to defend them. And it's good to have anger, and you don't have to express it through shouting or violence. Though screaming into a pillow or punching a kick bag is very helpful. I'm learning that I can express my anger through firm but kind words, and I can express it by leaving if a situation isn't serving me. And if I've got any residual anger, then I can get it out through an intense workout or through venting to my friends or through shouting into a bowl of water or my pillow. I can displace it, you know? Because healthy anger is your friend. It tells you when you're being hurt, and it gives you that power to do something about it. Sadness. Sadness is the emotion that I struggle the most with allowing myself to feel. Sadness is the energy that we discharge in order to heal. As we get in touch with the energy of all the losses and violations to our needs in our life, sadness allows us to grieve and to get that all out. And we do that through crying and screaming and yelling. And there's something so primal about getting in touch with that raw, deep sadness. And it's one of the most powerful and raw things I've ever seen. The tricky part is that sadness is painful, so we don't want to feel it. But the more that we don't feel it and we repress it, that energy doesn't go away. We just lock it up inside us. And that stagnates, and it keeps us tightened up, and it's difficult to get out. And it freezes the pain inside of us. And the only way to get out that pain is to get in touch with it and to feel it. Feeling the sadness, the horror, the shock of having your needs not being met helps us to integrate that into our current reality. As the common phrase in the therapy space goes, feeling is healing. Joy. Ah, joy. I feel like my experiences of joy were pretty limited from sort of my teenage years until I got in touch with myself more by doing this healing work. And joy is really the emotion, the energy that comes out when your needs are being met. It's a sign that things are going well. Most people say that they get in touch with their joy when they rebuild the relationship with their often scared and frightened inner child. And this was the case for me as well. I realized that I just had so much shame around being joyful, being exuberant, being loud and curious like children are, because I had to be quiet. I had to be quiet for my parents, I had to be quiet for my teachers, and I needed to let that joy out. And so working through the shame binds that my inner child was suffering from really helped me get connected with that energy again, and it has just made my life so much more worth living. And then finally, shame. Shame. That bad emotion, as in, I am bad. I'm going to make a whole video on shame because it's very complex and arguably at the root of pretty much all trauma. But to put it simply here, shame comes in two forms. You've got toxic shame, which shuts us down and tells us something is bad and awful and evil and should be cut out and never expressed. And it's not that the behavior is bad, it's that we, ourselves, ourself, is bad. And so toxic shame cuts us off from those bits of us that we need to be a healthy and whole, complete human being. Whereas healthy shame gives us limits that keep us safe. Healthy shame puts limits on things like our desire for pleasure or our curiosity, which can prevent us from doing things that are not very wise. Healthy shame is really good discipline, which ultimately then gives us a foundation in which we can act with a lot more freedom and happiness because we're safe within the limits and the boundaries that we've set for ourselves. Again, as the common sort of phrase goes, discipline equals freedom. So hopefully now you have a better idea of why we have emotions and how our society and the family systems that we grow up in often shut us down emotionally. We can open back up because our emotions are our birthright, and they are the vital life energy that keeps us in touch with our needs and gives us the energy, the fuel to go out into the world and to meet them. All emotions are precious, and they are nothing to ever feel ashamed about. If you enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. It would really mean a lot to me if you could hit like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. I wish you all the best on your healing journey, and I will see you again soon.